Hello everyone, Namaskar, good afternoon, and welcome to this online session today. Our guest today is Sri M, a
Yeah.
spiritual guide, social reformer, educationist, and author. He was born Mumtaz Ali on November 6, 1949 in Tiruvananthapuram, Kerala. His transformational journey from a young boy to a living yogi is a story of single-minded discipline and dedication. At the age of 19, irresistibly drawn to the snow-clad Himalayas, Sri M embarked on his journey to seek a true master. Maheshwarnath Babaji, a senior disciple of Sri Guru Babaji, took him under his tutelage and initiated him into the Nath tradition. For 3.5 years, he lived and traveled extensively through the Himalayas with his Guru. What he learned from Maheshwarnath Babaji transformed his consciousness. Sri M established the Satsang Foundation 20 years ago as a meeting point for spiritual seekers of all persuasions. According to him, one has to go to the core. Theories are of no use. Under the Satsang Foundation, Sri M has initiated projects for social development in areas of education, health, skill development, and environmental protection. To spread the message of universal peace and harmony, he led the Walk of Hope in 2015-16 from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, spanning 15 months and 7,500 kilometers across 11 Indian states. His autobiography, Apprenticed to a Himalayan Master, a Yogi's Autobiography, was published in 2011 and instantly became a bestseller. A sequel, The Journey Continues, was published in 2017. His latest book is On Meditation, Finding Infinite Bliss and Power Within. As a keynote speaker, he has been invited to several institutions like World Health Organization, United Nations Office in Switzerland, World Bank in the United States of America, and Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has also addressed corporates in India and overseas. To name a few, Google and Yahoo in the US, respected business and technical institutions like IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Kolkata, IIT Delhi, and many others. Among the many awards and honors he has received for his contribution to society, Sri M was conferred with the prestigious Padma Bhushan in January 2020, one of the highest civilian awards of India, for his distinguished service of high order in spirituality. Sri M is married and has two children. Based in Madanapalli, Andhra Pradesh, a 3-hour drive from Bangalore, he leads a simple life. Appreciative of music, he also writes and paints in his leisure time. Now, I would like to request our Honorable Director of IIM Bodh Gaya, Dr. Vinita Sahai, to say a few words on this occasion and take the session forward. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Very humble pranam, sir, and a
Namaskar.
very
Thank,
warm welcome.
thank you.
Indeed, it is. Uh, it's a pleasure. It's a privilege, which as a campus we all will remember for a long time. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation on my personal behalf and on behalf of the entire IIM Bodh Gaya fraternity. We are,
Thank.
as you yourself mentioned, we are speaking from the land of enlightenment.
Yes.
Yes, I think as a campus, we are very, very fortunate to be in this geography where learning and reflection always has been the core philosophy. I think Nalanda University is very close to us, which was originally the most ancient place of learning. And of course, we are land to, or we are home to, three most reflective religions in the world. I have heard so many people saying that coming here and meditating and reflecting is very natural. People come to this geography and feel very differently. So with such a rich history and legacy, I think as a campus, we have this onerous responsibility to live up to this tradition. So when we were institutionalized in 2015, and when we as a campus were to decide as to what would be our own niche or our own specialization, as we call it in management jargon, we chose the word mindfulness. But frankly, sir, it is a journey which very, very baby steps we have taken, and we have a long way to go. So today I see this one session with you not just as one session, I see it as a beginning of a new journey, because we would need lot of hand-holding, lot of guidance to actually make this place a center for reflection, a center for mindfulness. So even if this session ends today, my humble request to you and to your team is, to the moment this lockdown and these situations cease to exist, we would request you to be on our campus and help us and guide us in taking this journey forward. My colleague has tried introducing you, but we all know that no words are enough. So I would not take any more time. Our students and world at large, we are very, very keen to listen from you. And just because of the technology issues, I had asked my students, a very young bunch of curious young minds, to type their questions and send it to us, so that we make use of every moment that we have with you. So we would, towards the second half, we will
Sure.
ask you questions of all that they have showed their curiosity. So again, once again, sir, a very warm welcome, and we're keen to listen to what you have
Thank
to
you
share
very
with
much.
us.
Yes, thank you. And I'll be very happy to come to Gaya at some point. I've been before, so let's see.
We would wait again, sir.
Thank you. So we can start.
Yes, sir.
So, what is the procedure like? I speak for a while.
Yes, that's what we decided, sir, with your
Ha.
that you speak for about whatever time we feel is
Okay.
right,
Okay.
and then there would be a Q&A session.
Okay. So, welcome again to this satsang. Let me put it that way. The subject given to me is wisdom of the Gita for new age managers. I need to say this. I don't think there are new age managers and old age managers. Managers are managers. The manager is one who can manage things. I think to manage the outside world, my understanding is that you should be able to manage your own mind first. Without managing your mind, you cannot manage the world, or you can't manage others. So that's where the Gita is relevant today, the topic. For us, being social human beings running up and down, that we are shut in for 2 months almost, or maybe more, in one place. So, on one hand, you can look at it as a depressive kind of thing. On the other hand, you can consider it as a opportunity given to us to look into things which we normally are not accustomed to look at. Many hundreds of years ago, some of the philosophers and yogis, including the great Buddha, who spent time in Bodh Gaya, spent many months or even years of isolation. I don't want to call it isolation, solitude, so that they could deal with their minds and figure out various things which they couldn't do when they were already active in the outside world. So I'm saying we should consider this as an opportunity given to us right now. This is the positive way of looking at things in a managerial way, that we have time. So what do we do now? We need to work on what? On our mind. Why? Because if you don't manage the mind, you cannot manage anything in this world. So consider this not as an isolation, but as a period of solitude. Solitude is different from isolation, you know that. Isolation is, oh, I am alone, I can't. Solitude is, I love this, let me work on it. Right. So the Gita. Now, it's interesting that among the three important texts that are followed by the student of Vedanta who is in search of the truth. Why does somebody study Vedanta? To search for the truth. So, all students who go into the curriculum of Vedanta study the Upanishads, they study the Brahma Sutras, and then in the middle comes the Bhagavad Gita. So, in the Prasthanatraya, the curriculum, threefold curriculum, the central is the Gita. Now, the Gita is basically, in simple words, an expression of the same teachings of the Upanishad and the Brahma Sutras. But everybody cannot understand the Brahma Sutras and Upanishad, but the Gita is easy to understand. Why? Because it is the scene in which the Gita is taught is a battlefield. The battlefield of Kurukshetra, where the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna takes place. Let's not go into the understanding of can we teach such an important thing in the middle of a battlefield? I think yes. It's only if you can learn this in the middle of a battlefield can it be practically useful to us in the battlefield of life. It is a battlefield, right? So, having said that, let me come to the Gita itself per se. It's part of the Mahabharata, which you know, Bhishma Parva, and it has 18 chapters. Now, look at this. Where does and it is supposed to be taught by Krishna to Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield when Arjuna says, no, I'm not going to pursue this because I don't want to get involved in a war like this. And Krishna says to him, this is not your disdain for war, it's fear of failure that has stuck you. So, don't be afraid. Find out your true essence and go ahead because you're not fighting for yourself, you're fighting for dharma. This is the teaching, this is where it begins. Now, therefore, automatically, when Vyasa put down the Gita in the verse form, the first chapter of the 18 chapters is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow, yoga of Arjuna's indecision, the yoga of Arjuna's confusion. So I think in a way, we all stand at some point in our lives in the same situation as Arjuna, in sorrow, in confusion, in insecurity, in uncertainty. And from there it goes on to the rest of the chapters. So if you read the Gita carefully, we can't go completely into the Gita now. The second chapter is Sankhya, then there is Karma Yoga and so on and so forth. What you would notice in toto in the Gita, the teaching is the mind, your mind, my mind. I think it's very important for people who are tomorrow going to be managers. Because first we need to manage ourselves. As I said before, without managing ourselves, I think we'll be utter failures trying to manage others. So the basic teaching is that the mind, our mind, your mind, has two parts. There is the mind that is the positive mind. There is a mind which is the negative mind. People who are all their lives depressed, who think they can't succeed, who can't move, are people in whom the negative side predominates and the positive side is buried deep down somewhere. The Gita's teaching is, wake up. There is also the positive side in your mind. Bring up that positive side. Abandon the negative side. Gita, Krishna says very beautifully in the Gita, he says, the mind is both your friend and your enemy. Cultivate the mind that's your friend. Discard the one that is your enemy. So this is the basic teaching. Then there is a concept discussed which is called as Sthita Prajna, a person whose mind remains tranquil in the midst of all circumstances, plus or minus, positive or negative, good or bad. If somebody asks, is this possible? I would say, yes, it is possible. Anyone who is ready to understand the teachings and go through at least a little bit of discipline. For anything to succeed, you need to go through a bit of learning, bit of discipline, can actually come out with this understanding that the friendly part of the mind can be put at a better level than the negative part of the mind. One, and that no matter what circumstance, this is very important for managers. No matter what the situation, if you translate into managerial terms, sometimes in businesses there will be failure. Sometimes in businesses there will be success. Of course, we aim for success, but we cannot be bogged down by failure. Very important to note. So, to keep the mind in the midst of sorrow and happiness, praise and insult, good times and bad times, which are bound to happen because when there is a good time, at some point the curve can go down. We know this, that suddenly when the economy is booming, there is a depression coming. It has happened before. It's happening now. So what do we think about this? How do we deal with this vishada, this sorrow? We say, okay, mine. Now, if this sorrow is coming, if there is pain, if there is loss, it's a downward curve. Any curve that goes down is bound to go up again. I hope the COVID curve doesn't go up again, but it will also go down because I believe that we are going to get out of it also soon because every living thing, including a virus, has its own lifespan. Today or tomorrow it's bound to go. So we should come out with the lessons that we have learned during this time where we are sitting in one place, not being able to go out, learn many things, and be able to face the situation that comes before us. Plus, keep our minds in sthita prajna, which means a state where whatever happens, the mind remains unperturbed. Now, one thing you note, there are practical techniques, but that are not so important as the understanding of the fact, which is the philosophy behind it. If that is not understood, no amount of practice is going to help. Some people think, oh, if I go and learn some meditation practice from somebody, from some guru, Sri, whoever, and then I'll be free and I'll become a student. No. It's an attitude of mind more than a practice. And the attitude is that to understand clearly that anything that goes down will have to come up again. Well, even in the Bible, Jesus Christ said that beautifully. He said, every hill shall be brought low and every valley shall be filled. All that goes down with. So, to understand this and handle life situations in this way is the way to keep the mind tranquil. Now, why should we keep the mind tranquil? Because it's the mind which has learned to be at peace with itself. That is the mind which comes out with creative thought and creative improvements in life, in oneself and also in others. If you have a mind which is constantly distracted, disturbed, in tension, in conflict, such a mind, don't expect anything original and creative to come out of that. So, therefore, it's very important for us to understand that the mind has to be managed and made to remain tranquil no matter what the situation. Now, when I say tranquil, do not mistake it with laziness. Laziness is not being tranquil. In fact, lazy people are very depressed and lazy people are always confused. This is not that. We have to separate the two. It's like saying sattva guna and tamoguna are the same. They're not. They're two gunas. They're different. Now, actually, to change your mind from inertia, from negativity to goodness and creativity, the middle level through which you have to go is called rajoguna, which is activity. So this activity, look at great people, even the great Buddha. After he had attained nirvana, he had no aim in life. Then why was he walking around the length and breadth of India, working all the time, teaching all the time? Because he was doing work without expecting any return for himself, but to bring about change in others. I think that is perfect management. Even when you're in a company or in a factory or in a industrial thing, don't think only about your pay and your how you're improving. Try to see what improved products, what improved situations, what improved projects that you can offer to the world. Because when others are happy, you're happy. People are waiting for you. They say he's a good manager. Why? Because he knows how to run the place. He knows how to keep people engaged. He doesn't get angry. His mind is always in a quiet place and he is very creative. When I go to him and say, Sir, it's not possible to work out this problem, he says, Give me 10 minutes. Then he says, Yeah, this is the way you're looking at it. Can you change the way of looking at it? Perhaps you'll find a solution. A manager shouldn't be one, according to me, who spoon feeds. This is what I have learned from my manager. Who is my manager? Maheshwarnath Babaji, my guru. He managed my life. How? Not by spoon feeding me. I said, This is what it is. He said, Think, find out, come out with something. Then we'll have a discussion. If I think it's not right, I will tell you. If you think it's right, it's okay, great. In fact, such a great man once told me that perhaps you might come out with a better solution than I do. I think this should be the managerial attitude. Not to say that I am always right, but to see that I may be wrong and maybe others will come out with more creative ideas. And if they come out, how to handle it, how to put it together. A manager doesn't have to go and learn in a factory how to screw with a screwdriver. No, he has to learn how to get other people to learn to do the job. He need not do it himself. Now, before I end this session, if you expected some chanting or something, well, this is not that kind of session. Anyway, I want to tell you a story about Henry Ford, almost the father of the modern automobile, almost. There were others also, Daimler and so on, but Ford. Now, in a certain case, a legal problem, Henry Ford was hauled to the court and he went to the court and the judge wanted to actually make fun of him because he knew that Henry Ford was not a great engineer himself. So he asked him, Mr. Ford, how much do you know about the mechanism of an automobile? And Henry Ford said, well, I don't know much, Your Honor, but if I press a button, there are 32 experts in automobiles standing before me, and I know how to handle them. This is managing. You know what? You cannot expect to know everything in this world, even in your own subject. You may not know certain things. But if you have the right understanding that I don't know, somebody else may know, even if they are much younger than I am, physical age I'm talking about, then you have begun to understand the spirit of entrepreneurship, the spirit of management, I would say the spirit of finding the truth in a higher sense of the term. Unfortunately, our learning has been completely, from the beginning, memorized. Say, this is true. But suppose it is not, hey, just accept it and move on. No. We should learn to think. Don't put your brain in the refrigerator. Some people say, if you don't submit, you cannot love. I say, if you submit, there is no love. How can you submit and still have love? I mean, it's so. These are some of the things I have discussed with you based on the Bhagavad Gita. And see what happens in the end. In the Gita, Arjuna takes back his bow and the Kurukshetra war is over. And then what happens to Krishna, the supreme manager? He says, okay, now the job is done. I'm going to Dwarka. Finished. I'm not interested. You see? So, This is the message of the Gita. That, I'm going to put it in one sentence now. The, the essence of all creativity and energy is in us. We need to learn how to evoke it and manifest it. Once we learn to do that, you have understood the song of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita. And it's not just another worldly philosophy, it's something to do with this world of people who sit in front of us, who talk to us, who learn from us, or from whom we learn. I'm going to stop the session, my talk here, and now we are open to questions till what time? Another 15 minutes. Another 15, 20 minutes. We can have what the Gita calls a samvad, a dialogue. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Now I would take up some of the questions which our students have posted.
Yes.
So I'll start with their names. Amit has asked, what is the main cause of anger and how can we manage it? Maybe with the help of Gita. So they're asking for quick fixes.
So, yeah, but it's a legitimate question, of course, but there are no quick fixes. Okay, what is the reason for anger? Since it is a Gita session, let me go to the Gita. I don't mind. I hope you don't mind if I spend a little time.
Yeah, he said he wants an answer through Gita.
Gita. Now, let me therefore go to Gita's definition of anger. There's a beautiful sloka in the Gita which says, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Samjayate Kamaha Kamat Kroto Vijayate Krodad Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat Smriti Vibhrama Pratibhramshat buddhinasho, buddhinasha pranashyati. It's not Greek and Latin. Let me explain. Dhyayato vishayan. When the mind, when our senses, or let's say not senses, when we are always in contact with the objects of the senses. The whole world is senses for us. We cannot know the world without our senses. So when we are constantly exposed to the world through our senses, dhyayato vishayan punsaha sangasteshu pachayate. So when this continues for some time, sangat sanjayate kamaha. From that coming together of the objects of the world and our sense organs comes desire to acquire them. Kama. Okay? Kamat krodo vijayate. Now this needs a little explanation. They're saying, and from that desire comes anger. So how can anger come from a desire? I think a desire is giving me happiness. So why should anger come? I desire for a cup. This is simply a physical object. I'm just using it as an example. I desire to have ice cream. That beautiful cup of ice cream which I saw in Frankfurt airport. I desire for it. Now frustration and anger sets in when I cannot reach Frankfurt from here and get that ice cream. Okay, suppose I am sitting in Frankfurt and the ice cream is in front of me. Suppose somebody snatches it away from me. What happens? I get angry with that person. Okay, for young managers, you're in love with somebody in college and then 1 year passes and another smart student comes into the picture and soon you see this lady is looking up at him and not at you. What happens? Anger, krodha. Why? Anything that stands between me and the object of my desire causes my anger. Now it need not be a physical object, it could be also my own mind's desires. It need not be dependent on a physical thing. I can't do it. Anything that stands against that and divides me from that is the object of my anger. That's how anger is born. Right. So you have to watch yourself carefully to see the point when the anger is born. After it comes, you cannot do anything. It does its destruction and goes. Okay. So let's go further into this. So from that unfulfillment of desire comes anger. And the person uh, who causes that unfulfillment becomes object of my anger. Person or situation, both. Hmm? Okay. What happens when you're angry? If you understand this much, I think you'll want to be free of anger. How? Krodhat smriti vibhrama. What happens with anger is that you begin to lose control of yourself and your memories and your thoughts and everything. A man in anger, a driver in anger may go and slap the boss who is the owner. Why? Because in this anger he has forgotten that he is his boss. All smriti has been wiped out totally. Now imagine a person who is constantly angry in life, little things. What happens? He keeps losing his perspective on and on. So if you constantly in 24 hours of life, 20 hours we sleep, let's say, 12 hours, if you constantly keep losing your perspective because of anger, then what happens? Smriti Bhramshat Buddhi Nasho, then your intelligence and your thought process, everything becomes destroyed. Buddhi Nasha Pranashyati, with that the whole life is destroyed. So this is the root of anger. So in daily life, first thing to do is figure out why am I angry? What is the reason? There must be something that is causing this. If you look deeply, you'll find that the cause is actually myself. Because I don't get it. Therefore, I am angry. Not the other person is instrumental, maybe, but actually not. Like the great Basava said in the Vachanas, we have a Lingayat movement in Karnataka. The founder was Basaveshwara. He has written a complete book, beautiful Vachanas, his words. In one, he says, man, if you get angry, you're only destroying your own house. Nothing is happening to the neighbor. So by anger, you destroy yourself. Why would you want to destroy yourself? So as soon as anger is, once it is done its job, you can't do anything. Then you regret for it. And you cannot attain anything through getting angry. You can only attain something by being cool about it. So the moment the anger rises, you should learn this practical to recognize it. Oh, here it comes. Now I know. It's kind of a burning feeling at the pit of the stomach. It's the same when you have desire. It's the same when you have anger. It's the same feeling. It's to do with your hormones. The adrenal gland is pumping more adrenaline into the blood. And this is where it is. So when it comes, recognize it. Not allow it to do its havoc. If you understand it, that here is coming, then you will say, oh, this is not good for me. So you snip it in the bud. This is the way. So first step to deal with anger is to recognize it as it comes and say, this is anger, this is not a creative thought. Very often anger comes disguised as creative thought. It could have been done better like this, but that person is responsible. No, it's you who are responsible. You are angry. When you recognize this, now I'm going to again not spoon feed, okay? Food for thought. Find it and see what you can do with it. Question number 2, please.
Yes.
Madam.
Yes. A student wants to know, there's a student called Divyanshi who says, with so much of negativity around in these times of despair,
Yes.
what would you advise us as young people in our daily habits in order to stay positive and to deal with such anxieties?
Right. First thing is, when you are shut in for a long time, you suddenly feel that you can't do anything which you normally did. So your spontaneity suffers, your creativity. I understand all that. It is true. So what do we do? Then you begin to look, what can I do in this situation? Not, oh, then I'm desperate, I can't do anything. In this situation, given the situation, what can I do? That should be the thought. Look, I'll tell you what I do. Maybe a good lesson for everyone. Huh? What I do, I get up a little earlier in the morning because too many people are not coming. So I don't have to spend time talking to them. So I wake up early morning, uh, do my exercise, do my yoga, do my meditation, open the windows first and listen to the twittering of the birds, which you probably haven't listened to for many years because you have to rush to the office early in the morning. Go out into the garden and look at the flowers if you have any. If you don't have, look at the neighbor's garden with flowers. No harm. Mm. Then, after all, they have flowers. They don't know whether they're standing in your house or the neighbor's house. For them, it's okay, either way. Okay. Then, if you are interested in singing or music, this is the best time to practice. Take your laptop, sit down, because many of you must be using the laptop on a daily basis. Look for good music, for good songs. Hmm? Then this is the time to read things which you have never got the opportunity to read before. And with the internet on, you can read anything nowadays on Kindle or wherever you want to read. Then, if you're still working, spend 1 or 2 hours trying to work online. We are working online right now. I'm enjoying it because I don't have what do you call a fixed aim to attain. I just want to share my knowledge with you. So I'm enjoying it. Okay. Then I also do things like if you, there's no harm in playing cards for a while. I would prefer to play chess. Play chess for a while. It keeps your brain working. Okay. Then call up your dear and near ones and talk to them and tell them, hey, don't get so depressed. Wake up. Then you will feel, oh, I am a prophet trying to do good to others. Okay. Then what I do also is that I have a portable little uh, golf lawn which can be rolled up and stretched. So I do a little bit of putting. It's a wonderful thing to do in golf. I'm not saying you should all play golf. I'm just saying if you're interested. So there are 101 and very important. Something which we have never do in life, generally because we are too busy, and we also think not fashionable to do, is cooking. Start cooking. Cooking is a wonderful exercise. I'm saying this mostly to the men because they think, oh, it is the ladies' job to do the cooking. We are, please, the greatest chefs in the world are all men. So start cooking, even simple dishes. Put your mind into it. See how to make it clean, how to do well, how to share the taste with others. So buy some recipe books. You can go onto the internet and try to work on new things. What I'm trying to say is there are 101 things that you can do now which you could not have done when there is no shutdown. That's what I'm trying to look at the positive side of it. And then one day or the other, the lockout is going to open up. So when that happens, break your cocoon and come out. You know, the moth goes into the cocoon and comes out as the worm goes into the cocoon and comes out as a butterfly. So prepare to stretch your wings. Start painting the wings in different colors so that when the cocoon breaks, you're flying up in the sky. So prepare. This is the time for preparation. I would call this lockdown, even though we don't like lockdowns, but that this is a time to prepare to break forth and break free and break wide open when this is over. So pep up, young lady. Huh? Don't worry. We can do many things during this time.
True, true. Aditya wants to know that what advice will you give to a person who is unable to find the purpose or goal in life? He rather avoids making those kind of decisions and is just moving with the crowd because that sounds less risky.
So, if you need to achieve anything of note, then you need to take a risk. If you think you don't want to take a risk, you can carry on with the flow. But believe me, if you are an intelligent person, after some time you will not be satisfied with it. So I've been flowing with the crowd for a long time, but I need to do something new. That is the point when one starts thinking what is the aim in life. To put in a nutshell, what is the aim in life? Which all of us have happiness. even growth is because through growth you become happy and you share the happiness with others. Even growth is a movement towards happiness, smaller happiness to greater happiness. So happiness is the aim of everyone. The yogi who goes off to the Himalayas to meditate is searching for happiness in a different way. He is not interested in the ordinary happinesses that are there, so he discards the trinkets and tries to look for the treasure. He is also looking for happiness. The other person who says, I don't want to be a yogi and sit in the Himalayas, I want to be happy, is also looking for happiness because his happiness is in the bottle which contains the spirit. Mm. So all these people are trying to, all of us, you and me, are trying to find happiness. So therefore, at some point, while you are happy, continue with the flow, stop and think, am I just flowing with the stream or should I try to swim upstream? Now, trying to swim upstream is fraught with difficulties, obstacles, dangers. If you can't take that risk, well, live it. You can't do anything about it. If you are ready to take the risk, do it. Believe me, every risk taken is worth it. So if their mind says, no, I don't want to take, then that is not any big creative thought. It's laziness. New word for it, if you like. The tamoguna has overpowered you. Mm. But tamoguna is good in some ways. Look, deep sleep is part of tamoguna. So tamoguna, when it comes by itself, is good. But when you make it a habit in life all the time, that's where the danger is. Hmm? Yeah, madam, can we move forward?
Yes, I wish to know that they say कि रब की मर्जी के बगैर एक पत्ता भी नहीं हिल सकता है.
Tell me.
This tends to make us fatalist, you know, that kind of believing that everything is predestined.
Correct. I agree with you.
But then they also say that you know, when you are ready and when you have done enough to get ready, Purusharth, then when you're ready, the Guru arrives.
Yes.
So aren't they contradictory? That you have to do things, you have to make yourself ready, and then that would happen. So, like, and I guess then what all is needed for a person or for anyone who wants liberation to do? Because how would we get the grace of the Guru?
Look, this is the last question because we are up in time. This is the last question, so I might go a little more or less on this to keep with the time. Yes, I personally do not believe that every leaf is moving because of Rabb, because I don't believe this. I think we don't even know Rabb. We don't know whether he's moving leaves or moving twigs. We don't know. So let's leave Rabb out of the picture. Rabb is a word we use for an excuse when we cannot handle the situation. So let's keep it out. I'm not saying whether there is Rabb or no Rabb. Buddha said no, but we are not going into that. So so where are we? So we come to the second part of the question. People usually are so lazy, they don't want to move a twig, and they say even a twig doesn't move without rub. A twig will move if you rub it with your finger. That is the rub you need. Yeah? Okay. So now about the second part of the question, which is if you prepare, then the teacher comes. 1 minute. Now, and they said that is I don't see any contradiction because I don't accept the first part. So there is no contradiction. And I believe fully well that if you put your effort, you have to put your effort. Don't say that Rabb has to make me put the effort. When I am hungry, I go and eat. I don't wait for Rabb to get food for me. So it depends on how urgent is your desire for moksha or nirvana or freedom. Usually, if it is not so sharp and not so serious, then we bring many excuses. I am not destined to find it. Teacher hasn't come. How much more shall I do? First, to decide how serious I am. If you're not, leave it for the time being. There are other things to do. Don't worry about it. Suppose I am very serious. I say that is my one pointed thing. I have to do it. Don't say that I want to do it because Swami Vivekananda. We want no imitations. You can't become. Everybody cannot become the Buddha. Please understand. So, if you understand and if you are really keen on finding the truth, then there are various books available to us to read, which direct us on how to go about. I have YouTube talks on these matters. Please go into them and check. Go to YouTube and put Sri M, and you get a lot of talks: destiny, work, what to do, why the Guru, how the Guru comes, and so on. I'm going to say now is that if you then become one-pointedly serious about it, you are ready to discard and sacrifice everything else only one pointedly for that, and then you put in your effort into that in different ways. I won't even say everybody has the same way. Ways may be different because we are born differently, even though we are human beings, our past karmas, the way we are brought up, the family, everything matters. So there are different approaches to this understanding. So therefore, Swadhyaya is very important. That means self-understanding, self-study. Swadhyaya means self-study. So self-study. So study and start simple practices like sitting down and watching your breath and so on, and begin to enjoy it. And then when you are ready, after some time, then whatever help is required may come. It may not come in the form of a physical guru coming to you, not required. It may come as suddenly you read something and say, this is what I was looking for. And then if there is a need for a physical teacher, that will also happen. That has nothing to do with destiny. It is to do with your preparedness. And if you prepare, start now and keep going, then that will also happen. So, now, if you want more details on this, I know this is not a complete answer, I understand. If you need, go to YouTube and check my talks. Many of these subjects have been dealt with and discussed. So, unfortunately, even though this was a beautiful discussion and a satsang, and that too from Gaya, both Gaya, where the people tree stands, I would like to take your leave because it's time for me to move on. Thank you very much to you, madam, to the Institute, and to Mr. Banerjee, who started the proceedings, and all the young people. Mr. Raman is a good friend who is sitting here, me, and Mr. Riaz, who was hiding behind Swami Jyoti Banerjee. And to all the friends who are here, I extend my thanks for participating in the discussion from my side, and certainly promise to come at some point to Gaya and see you all and have a discussion at the IIM Gaya. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much from my entire fraternity and everybody who's listening to you across geography.
Thank you.
And I just wish and I request you that some point in time, God willing, should come very close. So
Sure.
if we can really host you very, it'll be a huge pleasure and huge privilege for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.